videos. He gives viewers a great starting point to dive deeper into these topics. It's wild to think we still have places on Earth that defy explanation, even with all of our new modern technology. Makes you wonder if these anomalies are signs that reality isn't what it seems though. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for my daily content. Also, sharing the video on social media helps expand the reach of the Awoken family. But for now, stay safe, stay well, and stay curious. Until next time. All reactions in these videos are for entertainment purposes only. Any advice given should be treated as entertainment as well. Viewers are responsible for conducting their own research into any subjects discussed in the videos before taking any action based on the information provided.